Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, August 12th, 2019 Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioner, Cemetery Commissioners meeting. First order of business, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start our regularly scheduled agenda tonight, I know I speak on behalf of the board. We send sympathies to the family of Tom Brusso. Tom recently lost his father. Those that know Tom, many years on the FAA, many years as an assessor. Goes without introduction. I know I speak on behalf of the board when I send our sympathies to him and his family. First up, we have acceptance of minutes, July 29, 2019. What is the board's pleasure?
Chairman, I'm going to move we accept the minutes of our regularly scheduled meeting of July 29, 2019.
Motion made to accept as presented. Seconded. Any questions, concerns, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up, executive session minutes, July 29, 2019. Motion to accept but not release.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made to accept and release.
Second.
And second, sorry. In public, any corrections, so as presented? All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up, under appointments and resignations, we have the police department, a conditional appointment of 4 reserve police officers. Chief Wayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent the board a letter. As you know, back in June, your board voted to authorize up to 10 positions on the reserve force. So we activated the police evaluation committee, and we held an examination and took applications. The evaluation committee met in July and reviewed 6 candidates at that time, and they'll be scheduled to meet in September and review another additional 5, I believe, who are qualified at this time. So for your consideration, I brought forward 4 names. There was originally 6 candidates that were interviewed. Of these 6, one of the people was stepped back to the next round of appointments because of the question on their certification, that it might not be valid at this point, because they may have been out of service for a period of time that was beyond the state requirement. So they're in the process of appealing that one, so that one was stepped back. And other individual was stepped back to the next round as well because they're only interested in part-time. And right now I have a reserve force of people right around 9 or 10 that only are part-time officers. So I need a pool of candidates in case there's full-time openings at some point in the future. So that's why I am taking the individuals now who are interested in full-time and who meet the qualifications. So before you have 4 names of individuals, and you have Mr. Mariano Conti, Mr. Jose Vallejo, Mr. Ethan Ducat, and certainly you'll recognize the last name, Miss Elizabeth Wayner. Now, Elizabeth is a daughter of my first cousin, so I think that makes it a first cousin removed. When she applied for the position, she meets all the qualifications. I met with the town clerk, reviewed all of the possible ethics issues that may be on hand. There was nothing that was apparent, but based upon my discussion with him, I filed a disclosure with the town clerk, so that's all on file down below. And again, as far as these individuals go, the evaluation committee met and interviewed all these candidates, and then they recommend them to you. These here are going to be conditional appointments, so for the benefit of any new selectmen that are on hand, what happens now is these candidates will have to complete their physical agility test, the psychological evaluation, finish up the background, and any other examinations that we have. If they're successful in completing that, I will bring the names forward to you again, and you will at that point vote to make them a formal reserve. So this is merely a conditional offer of employment so that we can begin the next stage in the process. So I'll answer any questions if you have any questions.
Chief, do any of these candidates have the Reserve Academy already?
They've all either completed the Reserve Academy or the full-time academy. Yes. And what we did was, I think we had 18 or 19 people that passed our examination. So for those who successfully passed, we broke them up. There was a group of about 6 or 7 that had no academy experience. So they've been offered the opportunity to go and complete the academy if they wish, but they won't be able to work until that's done. So they'll be interviewed at a later time. Then we had another group of the ones that have completed the academy that we looked at, and now we've broken them up into 2 groups. So these are the individuals from the first group. I'll bring you another list of names come September of other individuals at that time. Because I think, again, we have 10 slots open that you've authorized. However, just for training purposes and for to be able to work with them all efficiently, we don't want to do them all in one big group. So that's why we're going to do 4 now, and then we're going to look to do probably another 3 or 4 more come September.
Chief, I'll ask the Tony DiDonato question. Town residents, any of them?
2 town residents and 2 non-residents.
Okay.
How many of them here?
2 from town, 2 from non.
2 are here,
Any of them
yes.
here tonight?
Oh.
Ethan Ducat is here, and Elizabeth is here as well.
Well, can they come forward so we see what they look like and who they are? And
Sure.
yeah. Can they talk in public?
I think they may be able to.
Chief, want to do the introductions?
Sure. You have, to my right, you have Elizabeth Weiner, and you have Mr. Ethan Ducat at the end. The other 2, I believe, Mr. Conti, I think he works full-time out at with the UMass Police Department in Worcester, I believe, so he's tied up with them. And I'm not sure about Mr. Vallejo.
Well, why don't we go in ranked order? Mr. Ducat, would you like to speak first?
Yep. So my name's Ethan Ducat. I'm from Thompson, Connecticut. I attended Turtelot Memorial High School. After that, I went to Quinnipiac Valley Community College in Danielson, Connecticut. Then I transferred to Worcester State University and got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And then I went to the Reserve Academy in Boylston. And I've always wanted to be a police officer, and I'm just grateful for this opportunity.
Any questions for the candidate?
Yeah.
Mr. Joseph?
What's he got for hobbies?
Police work.
I like hiking.
I beg your pardon?
I like hiking.
That's it?
Makes good pizzas, too, I heard. That's
yeah.
might be a rumor.
Make a good pizza.
Okay.
We find out someday. Mr. Johnson, any questions?
Not at this time.
Mr. Singer?
Same, not at this time.
Mr. Administrator?
I'm just going to ask the chief to, on purpose, ask you to go over what your role is in the selection process and hiring.
Sure.
And once again, restate what you did in terms of avoiding.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The conflict.
Well, as you know, the selectmen are the appointing authority for all the police positions. And so my role is merely to recommend, and certainly handling discipline and things I have up to a certain level within the department, but anything as far as hiring, firing, and everything of that nature is handled by the selectmen, so you are the appointing authority. This process involves, we had an open examination held by an outside company, as we have in the last probably 8 or 9 years or so. We've used companies for that purpose. They then provide us with a list of candidates who successfully passed the test. Those people are given the opportunity to apply. Those who meet the qualifications are then given an opportunity to have an interview. They're brought in before the Police Evaluation Committee, where they're reviewed and screened through them through an interview process. That list is then given back to me for final approval as far as backgrounds and other things like that nature. That's why I explained to you the reason for taking 2 people off the list at this point. But otherwise, these names fall in the same line as the Evaluation Committee had recommended, minus the 2 that have been lifted off the list. I then submit them to the board here for a conditional appointment. The board then makes those appointments, and we move from there.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wayne, I'd like to say a few things.
Sure. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Weiner. Like Ethan said, I'm very grateful to be here. I'm from Grafton, Massachusetts, and I guess I can list a couple of my hobbies, what I do for fun. I do enjoy hiking as well. I like just being outside, hunting, fishing, swimming, anything, outdoors.
Are you used to, I'm sorry, man.
Good.
Are you used to referring to your second cousin as yes, sir, and no, sir?
I
If
am.
not, are you willing to do that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
No questions at this time.
Nothing? Mr. Administrator?
I'm good, thank
You good? Well, at this point, I know Mr. Joseph we like to have people come before us, and the chief excused the first candidate.
I'm
We
glad.
want to do all four, even though the second one's not here.
You know, we made a mistake a few years back when we didn't follow the chief's advice. And I don't need to see the other two right now to follow the chief's advice, but I want to compliment both of you for taking the time to come before us.
Thank you, sir.
And with that, I would move, if I may, that we appoint, as conditional appointments, 4 reserve officers: Mariano Conti, Jose Vallejo, Ethan Duquette. Duquette, by the way, is a gold coin from Europe, in case you were wondering. And Elizabeth Warner, who hopefully will exceed her second cousin's achievements. That's not part of the motion.
Motion made and seconded. So by the motion, it's inferred that that's the ranking as presented, right?
Yes, sir.
So the ranking as presented.
And what actually...
It's alphabetical, but not in our alphabet.
Not in any alphabet, I
Maybe
know.
Assyrian alphabet, it's alphabetical.
What'll happen too, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Joseph, for bringing that up, that point. When the formal appointment takes place, I instructed them to be here for that. This year, again, is the first step in the process, so nobody's really official until you approve it the second time.
Well, I don't have a problem with it, chief. Just you, generally speaking, some people, we like to have them all.
Yeah.
Motion made and seconded to appoint the 4 candidates as presented. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Congratulations. Like to come up.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Like to come up.
Thank
and
you very
meet the
much.
You
board.
gotta come up, shake the hands of the,
Anybody want to take a picture? Any family member? I know it's only conditional. But wait for the big one.
Nice meeting you. Congratulations.
European gold coin.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Congratulations.
welcome. I've done that before.
Shayla Kahlo.
Here we go.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
It's the post office. Document. We'll tell you.
Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck, everybody.
These, you see that?
Yeah. Sure. All right. Next up, public comments, citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to be heard on an issue that is not on the agenda that does not require a vote of the board? Hearing none. Town Administrator's Report, Mr. Ruda.
Board members, good evening. Mr. Chairman, without objection from the board, I'd like to review the first item on my report at the end of this agenda, because I'm actually looking for some input from the board, and it's going to probably be a little bit of a discussion, so in the interest of time, if we could move that to departmental communication.
Yep, without objection.
Okay, this past week, all department heads, the town accountant, the treasurer, and I met with a consultant from the Abrahams Group to compile a list of all of our capital improvement needs. That list included infrastructure such as pump stations, water and sewer lines, bridges, dams, et cetera, as well as vehicles and other assets. And as of today, we were notified that we will likely have to replace our underground fuel tank at the highway barn. So I would anticipate seeing that as a capital improvement item sooner rather than later.
So what was the work they did recently up there? Was it just above ground? They did the pumps and like a canopy or something, right? Recently, the
Correct.
last couple of years? No, nothing with the underground.
Not to the underground. There will be a second meeting between the highway superintendent and water sewer superintendent and the consultant in September, and follow-up conversations as to the extent and nature of the capital improvement needs of those two departments. They're very extensive, so it's going to require a follow-up meeting. We're planning to discuss the draft plan in September, and I've asked the Abrahams Group, upon completion of the plan, to give the Board of Selectmen a presentation. This plan will not be completed and therefore will not affect the fall town meeting. Teagan Bond, the water project overview. The Teagan Bond engineers who are working on the water infrastructure engineering project scope held a meeting last week with several members of the Water and Sewer Commission, and I was also in attendance. The highway superintendent sat in for part of the meeting as well, and progress was made in terms of understanding and setting priorities to address immediate issues with the entire water system. And I'm going to provide the Board of Selectmen with some informational materials and electronic versions of the maps, just for your general awareness as to how the project is progressing and the scope of the project. And they should be sending me those shortly, I would think. Did you get anything yet, George? Electronic maps?
We're still working on that.
Oh, okay. And I'll stop there so I don't step on George's toes when he comes up. Compensation study. Following our last meeting, I spoke with the MMA, and they have identified some firms that will provide compensation studies for municipalities. And my thought was that I would invite a representative from a firm to a meeting of the Board of Selectmen to discuss the methodology the firm uses and how they propose to conduct the study before I go ahead and hire anybody. And actually, as of this afternoon, I had a very good discussion, and we scheduled a firm to come in on September 23rd, just to give a presentation, and then we can have at it from there.
I would suggest too, with the board's pleasure, that anybody that has some questions or concerns, try to bring them to the administrator's attention, and he can maybe, I don't want to say heads up to the firm, but give them an idea what, more specific, what individual members might be looking for, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes, sure. Do you want specifics now, or do you want them?
No, just collate the data with the
If
administrator.
it's definitely not a fly-by-night. The people that I've asked to come into the meeting on the 23rd actually have published a textbook on wage studies. They're giving a national presentation on it, and they've been in business for 30 years, so they should be somewhat familiar with how to conduct one, and then we can ask how they do it.
Okay.
And if we have any questions or concerns at that point, we can certainly bring it up. We're under no obligation.
Yeah, but I'm saying if somebody wants specific questions maybe addressed, just float it.
Dudley's annual audit was conducted last week by Scanlon and Associates, and I had the opportunity to meet with the audit manager this past Thursday. And overall, he's very pleased with our financial management. There are only some very minor notations in the report for us to fix, and I anticipate the final report will be probably about 4 months away before we see it. But there was nothing glaring. We got a pretty good, clean bill of health.
I had a chance to meet one of the gentlemen in passing, and that's what he kind of indicated at the time.
Yeah. So it takes 4 months, 4 to 6 months, because they go from town to town to town to town, and then they compile then they produce the reports and send them out, as opposed to doing it one at a time.
Excellent. Any questions for the town administrator? Accept the report as presented. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Around town, focus on local businesses. We had an excellent presentation last time, so we're just gonna keep plugging away. If people are out there that got suggestions, feel free to send them in, but I'd like to keep doing it. License and permits, Nichols College, 12 applications for outdoor orchestra entertainment licenses. Presenting on behalf of the college, believe it or not, is Lynn Luby. And again, just for the record, I know Mr. Johnson's new, but I know he's followed along. These are your entertainment licenses because you guys have already taken care of your alcohol licensing through the state.
Right, our Sodexo Dining Services holds the license for the alcohol. There are a couple of events on here that alcohol will be served. Our first meeting of the Event Coordination Committee is Wednesday. After that meeting, our Public Safety Director, Jack Caulfield, will work with Chief Wayner to make sure we have the appropriate police coverage and so forth for our alcohol events.
Excellent. Thanks, Lynn. What's the board's pleasure? You want to take them as a group, read them into the record, vote them on individually? Usually read them and vote them,
Probably better off if you read them, the dates individually, just the dates,
and take them as a group.
and then
Vote.
take them as a group, yep.
Following 12 dates for Nichols College. Opening weekend, Friday, August 30th, 2019, 4 to 5 p.m. Saturday, August 31st, 2019, 2 to 6 p.m. Sunday, September 1st, 2019, 1 to 5 p.m., all located on Copper Beach Quad, Guest House Lawn, Chamois Green. Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, 7 to 10:30, Guest House Lawn. Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, 11 a.m. to 4, Academic Green. Friday, September 6th, 2019, 4 to midnight, Copper Beach Quad. Saturday, September 7th, 2019, 2 to 11, Copper Beach Quad. Friday, September 14th, 7 to 11, Copper Beach Quad. Wednesday, September 18th, 2019, 2 to 6, Pell Student Center. Saturday, September 21st, 2019, 2 to 8, Copper Beach Quad. Saturday, September 28th, 2019, 11 to 4, M. That's the one down below, right?
Yes, correct.
Saturday, September 28th, 2019, 7 to midnight, Copper Beach Quad. Friday, October 18th, 2019, 5 to 6, Daniels Auditorium Patio. Saturday, October 19th, 12 to 5, Copper Beach Quad. And Shamey Green. Shamey, right? Shamey. Should ask the guy that
Like you
went
dry
there.
in your car, chamois.
Right,
Unless
Shamey.
it's changed.
What?
Chamois, right?
It's sham.
Is that wax on, wax off?
I didn't live in there, I don't know.
No, that was.
No, he's in
Karate
Vermont.
Kid. Karate Kid, wax on, wax off.
Yeah, that was. So moved?
So moved by Mr. Siganovich. Dies for lack of a second. No, I'm just kidding. Chair calls for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions or concerns for the applicant?
So, being new,
Mr. Johnson.
just ask a question about the permitting. Is this normal permitting fees and all that, or is the college go through something different?
No, the fees are the same for everybody.
And once we receive approval, we send out a letter to abutters. We get an abutters list from the tax assessor's office, and they'll get a letter that lists all of these events for the fall semester, so that they're aware that these events are going on campus.
Great, thank you.
So motion made and seconded. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
You gotta sign 12 of these?
Thank you.
Welcome, Lenny. Just a second, everybody at home.
And break the pen.
Break this pen. Who's it now?
We should play hold music or something for the folks at home.
Elevator music. Thank the public for their indulgence. Let us get these signed for Nichols. Next up, public hearing, which we have none. Old business, which we have none. New business, which we have some. Nichols College parking waiver, permission to park on both sides of Center Road on Sunday, September 1st, 2019 for move-in day. West side of Center Road on Saturday, September 28th, from Healy Road to the Olson Residence Hall from 12 to 5 for the alumni homecoming football game. Mr. Wayne, our chief, you good with this?
Yes. I spoke to Mr. Caulfield on that. They're hiring police coverage for those dates, so they'll have that up there as well in case there's any issue.
So on the move-in day, chief, is that like intermittent? Is that intermittent, like cars pull up, they unload, and they have to go to another spot, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of
Okay.
move, yeah, they move in different points and park them in different locations. It's usually just unloading like onto the side of the road, and then the car moves and they move everything in from there.
Right.
Certainly weather permitting, I'm sure.
They might move faster. Weather's not permitting. Any questions or concerns from the board? Chair will entertain a motion to allow.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to allow a parking waiver permission to park on both sides of Center Road on Sunday, September 1st, 2019 for student move-in day, and on the west side of Center Road on Saturday, September 28th, 2019 from Healy Road to the area of the Olson Residence Hall from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. for the annual homecoming football game.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further questions or concerns for the applicant? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Welcome. Lynn. Next up, workplace violence policy. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposed policy that I'm offering to the board. I sent it out in advance. I hope you had a chance to look at it. It bolsters up what's a very vague, almost non-existent policy here. And its content is drawn from Mass Municipal Association and is a pretty standard, legally reviewed and adopted policy for cities and towns.
Everybody have a chance to review this before?
Remind me what the definition of a family member is?
On workplace violence? It's after the Nichols.
Sorry.
It's okay. I think that other one was just FYI because of the appointment, right? To the,
That's a previously passed policy.
right, but that was just FYI.
Oh,
Coincided with the
correct.
chief's explanation. Yeah, it's okay.
What's going on?
Probably-
Oh, I like this. You define them.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sigenovich.
Town council looked over this?
Town council's not looked over this because I thought I'd save us a few dollars and use the accepted Mass Municipal suggested policy.
So this is something that MMA has somewhere from their, like...
Correct.
Like clip art, so to speak?
Correct. It's a proposed policy from MMA that's been legally reviewed.
Okay.
Sally?
Yep, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, what I would like to see is something in here that specifically says that town employees may not have the sole authority to hire, supervise, or make any employment decisions regarding a family member. The reason I say that is this:
I think we're on the wrong policy.
sole authority.
We're not on that, we're on the,
That's a
Oh, I'm
previously
sorry.
passed
I'm
policy.
sorry.
I did the same mistake I did.
Yeah.
you gotta go past all the...
When we get there, I want sole authority to be in there.
That's because
okay?
you two are looking over on each other's paperwork.
That's,
Copy
if
it.
you want, I can bring it on to the next agenda for your amendment.
No.
Happy to
no,
do
no.
that.
We haven't approved this yet.
We have.
Yeah, we approved that one.
Well, you know what? I have a problem with this not being, I would like to amend it,
I'll put it on the next agenda.
okay? But let me tell you why. Sole authority, just so you know, and I know this is out of order, and I appreciate your indulgence.
No problem.
But this bothered me, and that's why I highlighted on what I originally had, is that if a person's relative is qualified, the best qualified for a position, we should not exclude them from being hired by someone other than a supervisor. Okay? But right now, the way this is written is, they can't hire, the town cannot hire them, all right, if they are the direct supervisor. And I'd like you to think about changing it to have sole authority, all right? Just think about it.
We can make an agenda item for the next
Yeah.
one.
Sure.
Any questions on the workplace violence
Nope.
policy?
I like it.
Mr. Johnson?
If a union member is involved, the union official, steward, et cetera, will be notified immediately of incident and of the investigation. If required, the appropriate law enforcement agency may be contacted. What's that mean? What's if required mean?
I think it means if it rises to the level of a criminal activity.
So is the
Versus
union
a-
official, steward, et cetera, trained to know what that is?
I don't think, no.
So this would be like asking your supervisor, hey, I saw this, and then they use their best judgment whether or not to seek the local.
I would think so. We have had a previous incident where, outside of the union contract, because of the nature of the incident, there was no issue with contacting law enforcement.
It doesn't prohibit it, though, right?
Does not,
Oh, not
definitely does not
anytime.
prohibit it.
It's because it says will be notified immediately, but doesn't say must be the person to do it. Okay.
Question, did I hear you correctly, Jonathan, that this has not been approved by town council?
It has not been approved by town council.
But it is boilerplate.
It's boilerplate, and I know for certain that it's been legally reviewed by the Mass Municipal Association,
just so
not
you
by our
know.
town council.
Good Lord willing, we wait 2 weeks and get town council to approve it, I'd be more comfortable.
I'm happy to do that. I'm not sure that that's the past practice that we've followed based on what I'm seeing in our personnel handbook. I
Bear
think
with
this
me
is-
on this.
yeah.
We are using terms like hostility and violence, weapons, and investigative process, which has certain constitutional rights required. No one waives those rights, no matter what they sign. And I just think it's wise to have town council approve it. Now, if you want to vote to approve it, pending town council approval, I'm fine with that too. But I'd feel much more comfortable if town council was
I'm happy to
imprimatur
send
on
it through
this.
if that's what the board would like me to do.
Is that a motion, Paul?
No, I would ask that the board, that the chairman instruct the town administrator to please clear that, or that you entertain a motion to approve it pending town council review. Either way.
All right, so Chair will entertain a motion to conditionally approve pending town council's review.
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion. Mr. Sigenovich.
Would it make more sense to table this, have town council approve it, and then if they make any changes, they make changes? Because if we approve it pending their approval and then they make changes, we're back to square one again.
Okay, I'm fine with that too.
I agree with Gary.
So amend the motion to,
No, I would remove the motion, I would rescind it,
with the,
and you can simply direct that this be tabled, which automatically places it on the agenda of our next meeting.
motion
That way
made to,
it's all done one full swoop.
motion made by the mover to remove the motion. Is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Yes. So, Mr.
Good
Ruda,
suggestion.
we'll table this till the next meeting, hopefully with an opinion from town council.
Yeah, I'll send it right through tomorrow.
Perfect.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sigenovich.
could we do the same with the next as well?
Let's-
Nepotism?
The restraining order policy is boilerplate too?
Oh, okay, restraining orders next.
The restraining order policy is boilerplate, however, I did speak with the police chief to make sure that it fell within.
Good precedent to have town council review it. I have no problem with it being tabled.
Without objection, we'll,
By the way, this has nothing to do with trust or faith in ability. It has everything to do with covering the town's liability, potential liability.
There it
I
without
wish it
objection, we'll do the
wish
same
we'd
with the
done this
restraining
20
order
years
policy.
ago.
is. Isn't it great?
Cost us about $100,000 a day.
But it should have been done a long time ago,
Yeah,
and we're
I
getting
know.
things done right.
You're right.
now.
So I have just a quick question for the administrator. It was brought up about a month or so ago concerning inappropriate stickers that were on some town vehicles. A, do we know if they've been removed? And B, has department heads addressed it with their workers?
George is indicating, yes, he has. I don't think we have a tagging issue with the police department.
No, but you know what we're referring to, George? It's all set? Thank you. It's okay, it's down to 11, board member comments. Mr. Joseph.
I would ask, Mr. Chairman, since it's not on the agenda, that I would ask that the town administrator contact our state representative and our state senator to ask if they are in support of and will in fact vote in favor of House Bill 4001 to include hemp in the crops to be included under agricultural protection. It's not a motion, it's a request.
I'm not familiar with that, but can we forward Mr. Joseph's request?
Will do. That was based on that article I sent out last night.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Done a lot of contemplating over the last 2 weeks.
You're not resigning, are you?
He's already out.
You're out? $500 broke you, huh?
Yeah, no, don't bring that up again. Last week, for a lot of, probably the right reasons, we discussed about, whether or not liquor license should be reviewed through the fingerprinting and, correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, background checks and such. I was approached throughout the week, and next time we're contemplating something like that, like any other time we're making a change to the way things are done in town, and there's a certain population that's might be interested. Now, I know it was on the agenda. Maybe we can make a different effort to get some people in here and have at least a discussion about it.
I was thinking about that too, Jay, and I talked to some people, as you know. We should probably include that now as part of like the license renewal packet. Somehow include a form saying as part of your, like, I'm worried about the phraseology, but as part of your license, a renewal application, you must provide fingerprint and be expected to provide every 3 years. You know what I mean? Or put something in, if your fingerprint is good for 3 years, and just insert some kind of letter.
Well, yeah,
That
communicating the what we've done is
I'm talking about going
paramount. Sure, but next time we go and think about changing the way we, anyone that operates some kind of livestock facility, we put some new things in place. You know, the due diligence is on us to try to get the right group in here to have the proper conversation, because we're trying to do what we feel is right. And
You want to advertise a public hearing?
It's too late now, we already voted.
No, I mean...
I know in the
Going
future.
forward.
So I'm saying I'm remiss to, maybe that was an opportunity there. So in the future, I don't know, who knows what the topic is, right?
Right.
New business is going to come up, and we should probably get the right people in here to have that conversation.
No, I agree, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, people that doing business in town do kind of need to pay attention to
Sure.
things. I mean, I had an excellent conversation over the weekend with a group of people, and they were criticizing certain financial practices or votes that the town had taken, and there was probably 20 people there, and I looked around, I said, not counting me, I've only seen one of you folks at a town meeting. So when someone comes to a selectman or a police chief or a superintendent, and they say, I can't believe you did that, the first question should be, I can't believe you weren't there.
Yeah, and in the end, we communicate the way we do, and, there's always opportunities to find other ways to get the right people in the room.
I agree.
And, that's on us. That's not, the town is doing what they're supposed to do and bringing people in and posting things, and,
Right, I mean, I certainly don't want to
but if
chase
that's not,
anybody out.
obviously it's not working. We got another empty room, we'll go to town meeting in the fall, we'll probably have the same 65 people that showed up last time, right? So
Whatever it was, I know what you're saying, yeah.
it's time for the board to look in the mirror and figure out
Solar
what
is
we
a
have to do
recurring
differently.
agenda item.
Yeah,
We're there, they need to be there.
Understood.
you know, when the town adopted the practice of a bottom line budget, similar to what the school department had done for years, it almost seemed like if you don't pay attention to the line item budget, people really don't pay attention. I mean, we're finding some stuff out now. I was in a conversation with the administrator today about something that I was at the meeting, I didn't even know what happened, but we voted on it, and it can be a tedious process, and I know people, some have objections to being there on a Tuesday night or whatever the case may be, but it's our form of government, it's the best one we've had. But no, you're right. I mean, sometimes, when I was on the planning board, a lot of it was zoning stuff. People come back and say, I didn't know that. Well, they had a public hearing, it was published. How short of reverse 911 and everybody on the phone and say, hey, planning board's voting on zoning, what do you do,
Right.
No, I know what you're saying, it's always a better way. Good thing is, we have a new administrator, we look at things with through a different lens and come up with what we can come up with. So my only comment is, I just want to ask the police chief, and chief, if I go too far
Could you send
publicly,
those, like, tomorrow morning?
please stop me, but you sent out a notice over the weekend, there was an incident
Yes.
involving a person that
It's a Lansing.
got double dipped in our town and the neighboring town.
Yes.
Was that a reflection on, was that a reflection on the location of where this happened, the business, or is it?
No, I think the individual himself is dealing with some substance abuse issues and taking out his frustrations on everybody, including the bail clerk that came in, and so just continued right from the time, so. And I guess, how do they qualify it? So he makes some poor life choices, I guess you could say, is the term, but instead of walking away and going off and doing something else, he
Chose not to.
chose not to, and
There was no reflection on where he was. He wasn't coming out of any of those establishments.
no, actually, the way how it happened was he was arrested. He was arrested here in town. We processed him, and we brought him to hold him in Webster for bail. And it's when he was bailed out from there, it's when more problems occurred out in the parking lot and things, which led to him going right back in again. So
Oh, saved on,
a lot of unfortunate issues.
saved on changing the sheets. Mr. Joseph?
I'm glad you brought it up, Steve. And the reason I say that is that it's a 20-year-old male, second arrest, alcohol-related, and he made threats. The implication was that he made threats to a number of people, which may have included officers. And one of the things that I worry about is a person like that who has anger issues not getting the counseling or the referral that he needs before he becomes a headline. And I'm hoping that something will be done to that effect when it comes time for a court case or whatever.
Yep.
Mr. Ziganevich?
Two quick things. I noticed more times than not, the around town section is empty. There's no businesses here. This is free. If you own a business in Dudley, or if you live in Dudley and own a business somewhere else, you can come here and promote your business for free. With people spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on newspaper ads, Facebook, Google, whatever you got, I don't know. I just wish some more people would take advantage of that free advertising for their business. And the other part is, Mr. Johnson had mentioned it earlier. We've got an empty room here. We've got a section on our agenda where anyone who's a resident can come up and speak. And from what I've seen in the time I've been here, as long as you're not swearing or threatening, you're allowed to speak. And I know people speak to me when I go to Park and Shop. My daughter's across. People speak to me everywhere. This is the better forum. This is where something's going to get solved, not in the meat aisle at Park and Shop. That's all. Not that I don't mind you talking to me there, but come here too.
Before we go to departmental, I just want to echo Kerry. And I think you guys all know, Jay has been on the board a little while, but he knows that's one of my, I always try to point that out. We have a town meeting and, you know, Jay said 58, 68. It's true. I mean, we have an election, last year we had 3% or something. I mean, I appreciate.
Democracy is voluntary.
Right, and I appreciate it. You know, we appreciate those that do, those that care. But I couldn't say it better than you, Kerry. You know, we have open mic for a reason, you know.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, anyone can call and text and stop and talk to any one of us, but you're gonna get a better result if you can come to a public forum.
I've never seen you once bang that gavel or the gavel previous to that to silence someone.
I didn't
Never.
really change it till you told me.
You want to tell folks where that gavel came from?
got a
I was
little more
instructed
leverage.
not to, but maybe at the next meeting.
Used to be Charlie Buffoni's,
That's correct.
and what was his role in the state legislature that he had that gavel?
He chaired a few, he's my grandfather, he had chaired a few committees in his career as a state rep, and that's part of the estate that I got, and I figured what better place to put it into service.
A lot of history in that gavel. I would check it for secret compartments.
That means I'd have to touch it. I didn't know how to lift the gavel up. Is it like Thor's hammer? You can't pick it up?
Maybe that's part of the problem.
Departmental Communications, Police.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one bit of good news. Today, Jimmy Rivera came in and was cleared to come back to work again. So,
Wow.
those who don't know, he's been out with treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for the last, I believe,
Wow.
probably 6 or 8 months. And so he just came in and brought the note in, so we'll get we'll get Chico back in action, as they say.
Nice.
So, but very glad to see he's feeling good, and hopefully he's on his road to recovery, so.
So when you see him, beep.
That's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
George, water sewer. Congratulations in order yet?
What?
Congratulations in order yet? Permanent?
Oh. I didn't,
You the permanent superintendent now?
close.
Okay, so not yet would be the answer.
Yeah, yeah. A few, they're probably gonna have to do some kind of posting for it anyway and stuff, some procedures, that's the only thing. So, I won't get too much involved in things, but I just wanna mention a few things. I study for the sewer department. There's a kickoff meeting on the 14th. I think that's gonna include the police and fire also, and a few other representatives. There's gonna be some smoke testing done in the fall, and we wanna make sure the public's aware of it. There'll be postings on the cable and all that. That's part of the testing, that requirements are gonna be done. So you'll be getting areas of smoke maybe coming out of drains or whatever, some sewer mains. Don't get alerted, it's part of the whole process. And it's just one of the initial steps in on our I&I project. We got a lot more to go, but we're identifying certain areas that need attention, and this is part of that process. So on the sewer side, things are starting to progress with that. It's gonna be a long process. On the water side, I just want to first say to the general public that the next two months are going to be pretty delicate for us with the schools coming back in session. Our stations are hitting highs already with this hot weather, and as you know, we're still at two stations right now. The projects are ongoing. The Station 3 it's a matter of waiting for the state, but the drilling has been done, like I said, staying with the other station for the new well source. The drilling's all been done for the testing. Everything looks good. We're just waiting for permits, surveying, DEP, and then final well drilling down at Station 3 to get that back into shape. We are making many system upgrades, and I first want to thank the town administrator and the town treasurer and all their help with these loans, because they're going to depend what these upgrades are coming. One of the upgrades is going to be all our stations have to be refitted with new piping, new tanks. It's a 20-year limit with DEP. They want to see new apparatus in there, new chemical feed pumps. We have started processes right now for a SCADA system is already being worked on right now for communication, which is our stations talking to our tanks, talking to back to the stations, how much levels there are in there. It's a system that's been antiquated for a long time. It's done through the phone lines, it's telemetering, it's analog, and it's no good anymore, and they don't even fix that anymore. So a lot of times our stations go down, the communication is lost. We have to go there and physically activate them ourselves or see what's going on. Causes a lot of overtime, a lot of issues. SCADA is going to prevent all that. It's really going to be something to get us right up where it should be. So that's coming along. The GIS mapping, the town administrator mentioned, we're working on that. Ty and Bond has been doing a good job helping us with the loans process, helping us with new mapping systems. They have the new technologies that we can use these maps to get everything on even our phones to see where shutoffs are, houses are, ties to those houses, all the mains, hydrants, the whole, past my point. I'm used to the old books, but we got a lot of guys who are into that stuff with all the crazy gizmos and stuff, and we're trying to go gung-ho with that and get everything so we're in shape with the town, so everybody has that system, knows where things are. We can refer to those things to help us locate, even on the sewer side, manholes or what have you. So that's up and coming. I also put in new chlorine analyzers in the stations. As I mentioned this many months ago, these analyzers are critical instruments that DEP and ourselves use to monitor chlorine residuals in the town water. How much is in there, what's left over. People unfortunately smell chlorine. We have to maintain a certain level for the state, and right now with the hot weather, it's pretty noticeable. It's there for everybody's protection. So that systems are starting up in one of our stations. They're going to be going on the next one. So that's all coming into play. So we're starting to get ourselves, we got a lot on the plate, but we're starting to get ourselves going with all these new, really mandated systems. It's going to be quite a venture, but hopefully by next year, sometime I'm hoping in the summer or fall, I can get station number 1 on our third well source back online, so we can start giving these stations a little bit of a break. Yeah, spread them all out together, and that way if we get any new water sources, even if the mills or something come into play, we're covered. We can provide the water. I really need people right now, though, to conserve as much as they possibly can in the next couple months. I don't know how hot it's going to be, but with all these schools coming back, we're going to be running on the brink. So I don't want to enact any kind of moratorium mandatory, but we are in a Water Management Act for voluntary water conservation, and I just want people to know that please do that. It's not a joke, it's very serious, and I don't want to start having to worry about shutting people off of watering their lawns or whatever. Okay.
Mr. Joseph?
Is that all you have?
I didn't want to bore anybody.
Do you remember, I asked that facetiously, but do you remember the time when we couldn't even get the water commissioner to come into a meeting? Never mind, make a report? So it's a welcome change from...
I'm very, my commissioners are great. They do a great job. They back me 100%. They know what I'm trying to do. They know that our system has been antiquated for a long time, and it's kind of been stagnated for a long time, and it all came up on me this year to, like, hey, what's going on here? We need to get all this done, because if we don't, we're going to be out of water. And now it's all coming into play, and all the legwork's been done, all the help's been given us by the town to get all this stuff going, and it's starting to come. It's going to be slow. Unfortunately, the state isn't fast, but we're doing it as fast as we possibly can. And right now, we're doing it in the priority list that we have to do it, where we can at least maintain a good water supply. And then as we go with that, everything is going to go and get upgraded to where it should be. And boy, the state keeps coming up with things every single day to upgrade. It's unbelievable, but
Okay.
we'll get there.
You lucked out. I thought you actually had any hobbies.
I got this, I got...
Yeah, I know. Thanks, George. Before we do any kind of adjournment, I'm gonna go back to the town administrator to refer to the building department clerk vacancy.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent these out in advance. I, again, hope you had a chance to take a look at them, but if you look in your packets, you have 2 job descriptions stapled together with my highlights on it and notes. The reason I did that, Mr. Chairman, is I wanted to give the board an idea as to, we had been discussing, and I think I'd really like to move forward with combining the departments based on the workload and the like duties and functions of the position. So what I did was I took these, when I was thinking about how to explain this to you, I said the best way to do it is probably just scan my notes and bring them in. So if you look at the 2 different Board of Health clerk and Building Department clerk job descriptions, I've highlighted duties that are essentially the same between the 2 departments. For example, responsible for the daily operations and coordination of department activities. I mean, that's a standard between the 2 departments. Receives and processes residential and commercial permits. Building Department clerk, it says building permits. Board of Health, it says what's applicable to Board of Health. So the bottom line is these are very like positions. There's more yellow on this page than there isn't. So I began looking around after doing a survey of these 2 job descriptions. I've been looking around at other cities and towns that may have a similar model. And the best one that I came up with, and by the way, there are plenty of towns that use the similar model that I'm going to propose, is the town of Northborough, and you should have a job description in there as well. The town of Northborough hires a support person. I'm not even going to use the job title because I don't want to get hung up on it. And it lists for all people who work for the town of Northborough in a support function, whether it's the police department, fire department, recreation department. It could be the Buildings Board of Health, it could be DPW, it could be engineering and planning, it could be family and youth services. There are essential functions that are inherent in all support positions in the town of Northborough. And that is pretty much the same thing for many of our positions here at Town Hall. There are secondary responsibilities, such as preparing information and responsible for the production of the department's submission to the annual town report. That's very common of clerical staff and support staff in the town hall. Provides backup to other department staff, very common, especially in Dudley, to support staff in the Dudley Town Hall. And then, for each position, the individual job descriptions list specific essential responsibilities, and they're specific to the department, as you can see on the second page of the Northborough job description. So what I think a good model is for the town hall in Dudley is to get support personnel, clerical support personnel, hired at the same rate for same and like positions, such as what I'm going to propose with Board of Health, Building, and ZBA, and pay them accordingly. That way there's no, so let me give you an example. Our building clerk, who was hired, it's now vacant. Our building clerk was hired in 2014, and as of June 30th, that rate was $18.96 an hour, $18.46 an hour, sorry. Our ZBA clerk was hired in 1996 and makes $17.77 an hour. The Board of Health clerk was hired in 2019 and was hired at $13.26 an hour. What do they all have in common? They're all the same classification. They're all classified as OAS 3, but there's no continuity. There's no universal application of raises applied anywhere. So, in the absence of a wage and compensation study or a survey, a classification survey, which we desperately need, I have to come up with a way to fill that position and come up with a wage scale for that position. Makes it very difficult. So what I've done is I've taken a look at, we're looking at combining the positions. We're looking at combining the position of building clerk, ZBA clerk, and Board of Health clerk. We have a range of a $5 an hour difference. So so what I did was I did a comparison of all employees that are classified in the town hall as OAS 3. We have the low being $13.26 an hour, the highest being $20.40 an hour. All the same classification, $7 difference. And if you look at it, it doesn't make any difference when they were hired, because the person making $20.40 an hour as an OAS 3 was hired within the last 2 years. The person making $13.26 as an OAS 3 was hired this year. There's no way that anybody received a $7 raise appropriately in the last several years. Mr. Johnson had something.
Yeah, before I lose the thought, so usually when I see a difference in wage over one classification, I usually start asking questions about experience, certifications, you know, yada, yada, yada. What is, are we overlooking the potential for some of those being the case, or is it?
I think it depends, Mr. Johnson, who you talk to. If we have an employee who's been as a clerk since 1996 for 23 years, making $1 less than there's been a municipal clerk for 4 years, it's a hard argument to make.
Well, I didn't ask about experience. I asked about certifications and, you know, is there other
Right.
things involved?
Doesn't make, the bottom line is that I looked into that. I tried to
Peel
make
the
some
onion?
sense of it, and you can't. In speaking with employees, it's whose boss advocated best, essentially. So it's a hard place for us to be. It's a hard place specifically in the absence of a compensation study and a classification survey for me to be, to try to fill that position. So I got a little mathematical, because I knew you'd love it. The median pay for an OAS 3, $17.81. The average pay is $17.29. So that gives us at least some sort of basis as to what Dudley is paying OAS 3s. So at least it's a starting point for where I should classify that position to be. The last piece of paperwork that I've included is a copy of a proposed job description, I hope.
Is that the one dated 8/5/19?
It would be, I think it's the last page. No, it doesn't. Do we all have the licensing, zoning, and code enforcement clerk?
Dated eight-
Dated August 5th.
That's correct, yeah. So this is the position I would propose. And I would propose that we would think about a salary range in the vicinity of $17.81 an hour. We had an outgoing building, now it's increased responsibilities. So we may look at the highest we pay right now as it stands as of June 30th. I'm sorry, July 1st is $20.40 an hour for an OAS 3. And the least that we pay is $13.26, but that, I look at the $13.26 as an outlier because it's so out of whack with the rest of the salaries and duties. So I want to get the board's opinion. Is my thought process in line with the Board of Selectmen's thought process?
What is the published range of an OAS 3? Is that $20 representing the top? And the 13's the floor?
For us, it is.
No, but under the OAS
So
3.
in speaking with the company that's going to come in on September 23rd today, it's not in keeping with what it should be for OAS 3.
According to their
According to
studies.
what they have done for 30 years. But that doesn't
Well-
solve our problem either.
That's a throwaway comment, the 30 years, because I know a lot of
Yeah.
groups have been in business 30 years that
Wait till you see them.
do other things, right? So,
McDonald's is in business, has been in business for a long time.
one other question. You mentioned you looked at workload. How did you measure workload?
Actually, I have a spreadsheet, and I took a look at what sort of permits were crossing over the counter and whether they were residential, larger workload, where you had to go from new construction to additions to that sort of thing. I had a brief conversation with the Board of Health clerk, and I've captured that information as well, which I can, the workload is about to begin in the Board of Health Department
Okay.
with relicensing and so forth, but the counter traffic is basically what I used as a measurement.
Would this increase or decrease the cost to the town overall?
It would decrease the cost because we'd be eliminating one position.
What are we being asked to do?
You're being asked to tell me if I'm on the right track or not.
In my opinion, are you gonna give the person a raise to $17 an hour? What is that person that you're recommending, or you will
I'm
recommend?
not recommending
What does
anybody.
that person currently make per hour?
I don't know. That person can make $20. It depends on where they work and where they're coming from.
I wouldn't change, if they're already in OS 3, I would not change their hourly rate at this time, because that's exactly why we're having a compensation study done, because of how we've done it piecemeal in the past. So I would keep that person, whoever gets in, at their current hourly rate, and when the study is done, we should come up with a system that's fair and equitable.
Otherwise, we're just doing it piecemeal again.
Again,
Right, but if I understand right, Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, the range you gave us is current positions
So-
ranges.
Correct.
And we're talking about consolidating some of those positions. So we may be consolidating a lower paid job.
So are we proposing that if somebody wanted the job that was making, an internal candidate was making in excess of what an OAS 3 should be making, we would then take money away from that person when we hired him into this job?
if you hire somebody if you put someone into that position who is currently on the payroll, I would not change their hourly rate. I know their hours are gonna increase from 20 to 35, approximately, but I would not change the hourly rate at this time. Again, I don't wanna beat a dead horse. It's the same piecemeal that we're trying to fight.
The starting, okay, the hourly rate that I'm proposing falls within normal limits of an OAS 3
I didn't ask you
universally.
that. I'm saying if you give this person a raise to $17 an hour, and they're currently making $13 or $14 an hour, that's being guilty of the same piecemeal that you've spoken against, that we've all acknowledged is a problem. That's why you've got that range of $13 and another one getting 50% more per hour. So I would not change that person's hourly rate at this time.
I think the question.
Look, you asked if I was in agreement. I'm telling you, I'm not in agreement for that reason. So
Well,
I'm trying to
then,
answer
my
your question.
suggestion would be we don't hire into the position at this point until we do a salary survey, because you're hiring someone at you're taking, we're looking to do a compensation study because of people being paid inappropriately to the detriment of the town or to the benefit of the town.
Whoa,
Oh.
inappropriate is a subjective term, and a compensation study and all the measurements that we talk about, you can't take subjectivity and use the word appropriate or inappropriate. It's either in the job description or it's not.
I think the question becomes, if I understand, as we consolidate some of these positions that are either currently filled or budgeted at a salary that the administrator indicated, I think his question was, if, obviously we create a position, we have to post it internally first. So if an internal candidate is making, I'll just round it off, the $20 figure, and we're saying we don't want anybody penalized, we don't want to hurt anybody, but we want to keep the pay where it's at. So if that person's 20 and the consolidated job ends up paying $17.80, but it's all within the range of the OAS, so we're going to penalize.
You can't, yeah, unless
person.
you advertise that the person applies, accepting that hourly rate. You really can't change their salary, you can't drop it.
Right, well, that goes back to the whole, basically, previous meeting, we talked about, you brought up, you wanted people not to be, I'm going to paraphrase and correct me, held harmless, no financial penalty, and we don't want to see anyone lose a position. But that'll be the end result if we combine 3 jobs and only one's currently vacant. It's going to happen. I mean, the salaries, if the person making and I know we're speculating, the person making 13 is a successful candidate and it's $17.50. But it goes back to my argument where people, like, I agree, they put in for the job knowing what the pay is. And we said it, and in conjunction, before I call Mr. Ganevich, I want to get out in front of the bullet before we get shut, wrong, bad phrase, get in front of the issue. Please invite personnel to that meeting with the compensation study. Let's make sure personnel knows we're having it, because the best thing to do is keep communication, and I hate to open up the local newspaper again and find that we may have inadvertently snubbed somebody to the point where it's the above the fold headline.
Yeah, what our intention is to
Right. Open
do what's right for the town, and create positions to best take advantage of the work that needs to be done in a way that makes sense.
Right.
And I would imagine you would post that job at X that makes sense based on some analysis. And we just don't want to get into the same the same pitfalls that previous boards that Mr. Joseph, Mrs. Sullivan have been on, that might have done these ad hoc as opposed to the larger plan, to your point, Mr. Rude.
Right, which, I'm not ignoring you, Kerry. It goes back to
I
this.
know, I'm just itchy. Don't mind me, I got a good one.
It's going back to this study, and I want to, like I
get
said, with this new firm coming in to do a presentation, I want personnel invited. I mean, obviously, people are watching, but as you just pointed out, and Mr. Joseph will back me up, and Jonathan had 10 years, that's the way it's always been. Like he touched on it briefly, an individual board goes in and advocates for their employee. Personnel approved it. When Greg was here, it'd go through Greg generally with a positive recommendation, it would pass. And completely, 100% agreement, it creates that, well, why same job, similar duties, there's a range of almost $7. you know, so you're right, we need to do it in a orderly fashion. Mr. Singanevich.
Why I think we should post this job at a certain amount per hour is, and I understand where you're coming from, Paul, but let's say if the person who's making $20, $19, or $18 an hour decides for whatever reason, I'd rather do this job than what I'm doing now. So they apply for this job, this new licensing, zoning, and code enforcement clerk job, and they come in at their pay of $18, $19, $20 an hour. Now their job is open, and we need to fill that job. So we need to fill that job at what it was before, whether it's $18, $19, $20 an hour. So now we don't have, if we don't put a dollar amount with this, we're leaving ourselves open for whatever cost may be. If we put it at 17 something, we've got a fixed cost. And then chances are, if the 20, 19, or 18 decide they want this job, then they're getting 17 and change, not what they were making. Just my thought is, and I'll use the $20 an hour as an example. If that person wants to come here, we need to replace that at probably the same rate. We're gonna lose $3 an hour.
Let me ask this question. What are the current hourly rates of the 3 positions that we want to, or we're being asked to combine?
The building clerk is left on, as of June 30th, was making $18.46 an
18?
hour. Correct. The ZBA clerk is currently making $17.77 an hour, and the Board of Health clerk is making $13.26 an hour.
All is OAS
48
threes.
divided by 3, 18,
All is OAS threes.
16-ish.
All is OAS
as an
3s.
average.
You know, Jay had it right when he said pitfalls. It's not only pitfalls, it's a quagmire. It really is. And I don't know if there is a graceful way of getting out of this.
We're paying Hector Chapa as an office and administrative assistant. Talk about classification, right?
I think,
$18.72 an hour, but he's an OAS. He's an office assistant. He's clerical support, and he's cutting lawns. That's the point we're at.
Well, that's all bass backwards.
I think we either need to do, if we're going to do this, we need to set a fixed rate for it, or we wait until the compensation study's
So-
done. We're at a fork in the road.
So
left
if
or
we
right.
lost Hector, would we,
Hire a clerk?
We gotta do both. So in which order do we do them?
Well-
Do we do the right thing and create this position that, you know,
well,
has a lot of efficiency gains? And then knowing that we have to go back and deal with the salary of many positions?
This is what I think.
It's a compromise, but it's
I
doable.
think, my opinion, I think the administrator's on the right path with this combined enforcement clerk. It makes sense to have what you can
I agree.
under one roof, in conjunction with, as you just stated, the other group that's gonna be coming in and hopefully assisting us with making some rhyme or reason out of the salary and wage compensation. I mean, I'm not throwing the Nichols study completely out, and I'm not throwing the process we have now out, but we definitely, I think, fork in the road, 2 paths. We continue down the road. I think the enforcement clerk is an excellent concept, in conjunction with other data we can generate and we can accumulate, whether it's an outside firm or we do it ourselves. Doing it ourselves, we end up piecemeal, and we end up, as he just said, Jonathan said, we have the assistant, his official position is to the maintenance. He's been filling in while Dennis was out, but he's technically listed as a clerk. You know, we gotta clear up these anomalies, and that's the only thing that one is definitely an anomaly. I don't know how that one ever came to be.
That's how you save on workers' comp insurance, that's what that is.
so can I throw this out, Mr. Chairman? What if we didn't have an internal candidate? What would we then set that rate at?
Well, that's the key. I mean, as this job evolves, we're gonna have to come up with a number. We can't take the low, I don't think, we can't take the high, probably. Is it the mean, is it the average, is it a whole new classification, is it OAS, whatever, step?
Is the person who's currently doing all 3 jobs, is it a 90-day period or 60 or whatever, that was agreed to? Is that correct? Do we currently have somebody doing all 3
Correct.
jobs?
Yes.
And is that person the most recent hire in the OAS 3 account?
Yes,
Okay. And what does that person currently make per hour?
$13.70 something,
13 and change?
$13.26.
Okay. And how many other OAS 3 people do we have who are making less than $17 an hour?
Less than 17? Two. 2 out of 8.
2 out of,
8.
okay. Here's what bothers me. And I think you're right. We have to do both at some point, Jay. But here's what bothers me. We've given a leg up on doing all 3 jobs to the most recent hire, which by all intent may, or for all practical purposes, may in fact give that person a leg up on getting the job over 2 other people who are making less than what you're proposing and have been here longer. Now, you want to talk about fair? Just think, I'm not saying agree or disagree. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from as to what I think might or might not be fair. I'm not taking a firm decision, a firm position, but you got to look at those kind of things.
So we did look at that, but the person who's currently filling in is a part-time employee and had the room in his schedule to fill in. He does a similar job, so he had the basic background to fill in. The only other person available was not interested in increasing the hours. The other ones are already, it would be an overtime event if we had other employees fill in. So, in terms of a leg up, I would never propose that we're gonna hire the best person. If somebody else in the town hall is gonna have seniority and more experience coming from a municipal position, we'd certainly consider that if he or she were interested in that job.
You know what? That's a good party line.
Well, it's true.
No, it isn't. Not necessarily true. It may be, it may not be. Because the person who's currently in that job, the most recent hire, can answer questions more realistically and more accurately than someone who has not done that job. That's all I'm saying.
But, Mr. Chairman, wouldn't that be the case in most jobs? We sat here on election day. I know it was an elected position, but, you know, the people chose who they wanted. And 3 clerk candidates talked about their experience and what they know and what they don't know. And a choice was made by a unbiased party, in this case, the voters. But wouldn't any job that we hire in this town be done in an unbiased manner
Absolutely.
by the people that are responsible for hiring the position?
Mr. Chairman,
Because
I
to put
understand.
doubt on that is disappointing.
I'll give you a better example.
Well, no, hold on. I got to respond to that. Number one, none of those 3 candidates had experience in the job. Number one. So it was wide open and even. And they had to convince the voters, and it was elected. Number 2, this is not elected. This is a person who has the least amount of seniority, that we've already asked to do it temporarily, who, and you all can say whatever you want. I'm never going to be convinced that person does not have more knowledge about the job, even though less seniority, based on the fact that that person will have been doing that job for a period of time.
Mr. Chairman, I would.
So it's apples and oranges.
But I would say we did that with interim appointments at the highway department. We interim appointed a foreman who, if we get to the point where we're going to go permanent, would have a leg up, would have demonstrated that he was in the position, you know, be up to his supervisor, but we created that dynamic by doing that. I mean, there was those other applicants that were internal. One had more seniority. We didn't pick, the board did not choose not to pick him. We picked somebody else. So I know Mr. Johnson wasn't here at the time, but we were, as a board, we made what we felt was the best decision, taking seniority out of it. And the person who had the most seniority that applied had actually filled in on an interim basis in the past. And the board still made a decision to go down a different path. And my only point bringing that up is not a reflection on who's in the job and who didn't get it. I think this board, as constructed, and I'll include Mr. Johnson, he's already proven his chops to me, will make the best decision, whether it's the interim person now, or it's a different candidate, or if we get to the point where we decide as a board we need outside applicants. I think this board has proven that they will go outside to fill a vacancy as opposed to inside, my opinion.
I see the handwriting on the wall. I'm not worried. I see the handwriting on the wall. Okay. You wanted our opinions? We've all given them our opinion.
I still don't know what it is.
I-
But, I mean, for real, I really don't know what it is.
I think
How,
we
what
can,
would you like me to do next is all I'm asking.
Do you need a motion? Do you need,
so is the personnel
You can't
board,
take a motion
oh, I'm
Oh,
yeah.
just trying to
down
solve
the
the
road,
problem.
you can.
has the personnel board reviewed this proposed job description yet?
I reviewed it with the chairman, but I have not sent it through the personnel
All right,
board.
so that, any change, Paul, you served in that board, would have to go through them anyway. So I think we continue down this road of a consolidated clerk position. I think it makes operational sense. I think it's gonna be better for the public, where they can come in. As you said, we try to get information out there. We get feedback all the time. This office is closed, that office is closed. If we can staff it with full-time personnel, I think it's only gonna benefit the public. So I think we continue down the road of this consolidated position in conjunction with the group that's coming in, and continue the salary study.
I think what Jonathan's asking, and Jay is the only one that really answered it directly, and that is, we have to make a decision. We've got two things we have to do, and we've got to prioritize which are we going to do first. Are we going to fill this position, or are we going to get a compensation study and be fair across the board? Whatever the board wants to do, obviously there's a majority, whatever the board wants to do, I'm fine with. But I think we need to follow the advice and either take one position or the other right now. I say right now, soon.
I think the classic no-brainer would be figure out this compensation. Like you said, we're gonna go piecemeal, create a job, and pay it something that's not even an option at the end of this study that we're gonna, or however we're gonna come about this study.
So we just, how about this, if I may? How about if we just keep it on an interim basis until the study's done and then we adjust it? That way, just keep it interim.
Right, and well, I think that's the intention right now. I don't think we're awarding this job prior to the compensation study coming forward, because again, why would we
I don't
give a
know.
job that may not fall within the range?
Well, so then we have to know how long it's gonna take to do the compensation study.
Yep.
Now, we got a meeting in two weeks,
September 23rd.
Months.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
How many days do we have left on the interim? I mean, on the temporary?
I'd say we're probably 2 weeks into a 90-day term.
How many?
About 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Into,
Yeah.
So let's say this company comes in mid-September. Then we have to do a dance on a negotiation of how much it's gonna cost to do it. We have to decide if we're gonna do it.
You're gonna dance, not.
So there's a negotiation, they get hired to do the job. How long does it take to do the job? I think we'll know a little bit better in mid-September on what kind of time frame that would be. And that might make our decision a little bit different.
I mean, I would like to see this job description go through the appropriate process, which we have as personnel. Administrator would propose it on behalf of us. Selectmen, personnel reviews it, he's already met with the chairman at least. Let's get their suggestions, there could be some tweaks. But I think the big thing is, and I don't think Jonathan could have made it any clearer, we need to clean up using this example, the OAS3 classification that covers so many jobs with a range that is almost mind-numbing in disparity.
Yeah.
So I think we continue the path of this description, tighten that up, as Jay said, everyone said. Now we wait and see the next step of the study with the wages.
Can I just clarify one thing, Mr. Chairman? And through you to Mr. Joseph, I want to make sure that you don't believe that I'm trying to fix his end for any one employee.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Because I want to let you know that, I mean, he's going to have a leg up whether or not he was the interim. He sits across the hall. He sees the traffic every day. They speak every day. They have a very like position. That's why I that's why I highlighted the different responsibilities. So someone coming off the street, unless they worked in a municipal setting or they've done something, it's not unheard of that they would have a leg up if they worked in close proximity to the position or in the same town hall. So, and to that end, that helps us when we're looking for somebody to fill in. So I was actually searching for someone who has that kind of leg up to actually perform the interim duties, because they're capable of doing it, as opposed to, say, a library.
Yeah, we just need to be careful, that's all. That's what I'm suggesting. That's the bottom line for me. I think it's the bottom line for everybody. We need to be right, and we need to be careful.
I fully trust the administrator when he said we had basically two people for the interim, and one was not interested. Because I would assume if somebody was approached and said, yeah, I'm interested, and the administrator just publicly said, no, they weren't, we're gonna hear about it.
Well, if that's the case, that's knowledge I don't have.
Me, myself, that's what I'm saying. So we good with this? We're gonna continue with, tighten up the job description, and we're gonna continue to collect data on the OAS. Hopefully that group that comes in can assist us.
Data.
Big on data, is that good for now? I mean, in a serious way. I mean,
Yeah, no.
that's you do it every day.
Okay.
Well, yeah, this is a data-driven exercise, and
More is better.
the right amount, analyzed the right way.
Good?
The more data, the better.
I will, we'll continue on the interim basis until we have,
Excellent. And the good thing is, it's our appointment. If we need to extend it a month or whatever, we can do it as it gets closer
Sure.
with the applicant. Thank God the fire chief's not here tonight. Next up on the agenda, executive session. To convene into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. Chair so declares. Is there a second?
Second.
You refer the court docket?
Superior Court docket number 1, am I supposed to do that? Because I cut it defeats the purpose of executive.
Oh, it's in the printed agenda, so it's okay to say it.
Superior Court docket number 1, 1985-CV-537B. Roll call vote.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Jason Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Terry Siganovich, aye.
Not to reconvene in open session, and the conclusion of executive will conclude our business. Thank you, everybody.